Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. Today I've got an interesting topic that takes us 2 steps back from just showing up at a bookshelf and picking just any book. Which one is better? An autobiography, a biography, a memoir, or a self-help book? I mean, let's be honest, it's not the easiest of choices to choose a book to read from each of these genres. So today I'm going to take you through my experiences with each of the books that I've read in these genres so that I can help you to make your own decision. You've been struggling with a problem for quite some time now, and you need solutions fast, or you just need some inspiration and motivation. You have all these 4 types of books in front of you. So which one do you pick? Stay tuned until the very end of this video as I break down these puzzling book genres. So what's the difference between all these types of books and what has been my experience? Let's start with autobiography. So an autobiography is a book that is written about a person's real life, their real life account by the author themselves. So they tell you about their achievements, their trials and tribulations, their struggles. And that's what they will put and pen down in an autobiography. And I have a few examples that I have here with me. Trevor Noah's Born a Crime and Other Stories is an example of an autobiography because he wrote it himself. So in autobiographies, you'll find that the account is in first person. So the person will say I, my, and they give you an account, just like retelling the story of their lives. I also have Tina Turner's My Love Story, which is also an autobiography. She gave a story of her life, her entire life, lately now that she's older, and she gives it right from the beginning when she was younger, and she really tells all the events. And her reasoning is that, of course, she wants people to know the real life accounts from her, from the horse's mouth, and not from the media. And I've got here as well, The Boy Who Never Gave Up. This is a book that I've done in one of my reviews, which is Dr. Emmanuel Taban's account of his life from when he was a young boy before he became the medical doctor that he is now. And of course, he wrote it with Andrew Cross as a publishing partner, I think, but he is the author of the book and he gives his story, his life story himself. Now on to biography. A biography is very similar to an autobiography, only that someone else writes about the life story of another person. So they would either be someone who is very close to them, someone that they know. It could also be a journalist, it could be a relative, it could literally be anyone who has studied them closely and looked at how they live their lives and felt that it was worth sharing the story of that person's life. So here with me as examples I've got, and this book is what I'm currently reading, and I'm very excited to show it in my next book review and recommendation. So this is Elon Musk, How the Billionaire CEO of SpaceX and Tesla is Shaping Our Future. And this was written by Ashley Vance. So he is the author of the book, but he's writing about Elon Musk. Ashley Vance was a journalist. I don't know if he still practices, but he decided to sit down with Elon Musk and get the account of his life from him and then pen down this biography. I also have here with me an artist's biography. So this is Bob Marley, No Woman, No Cry. And this was written by Rita Marley, his wife, someone very close to him, and she gives an account of her life with Bob Marley in this book. Now memoirs. So a memoir is similar to an autobiography in the sense that the author writes about their life themselves. However, it's different from just retelling their life story and leaving it like that, in the sense that in a memoir, they examine their life experiences and give their thoughts and emotions and feelings about that. So it's not just a retelling, but definitely they bring their perspective to it, and their aim is that we learn from them choosing that particular theme and apply it to our lives. So examples of memoirs that I've got with me that I chose from my bookshelf are Barack Obama's Dreams from My Father, which I know everybody knows this book, a very good memoir that he wrote before he became the 44th president of the United States. I also have Braving the Odds by Mzinga Melu, a Zambian CEO of Absa Bank. And this is a memoir on perseverance, finance, and faith. So it focuses on this area because whatever it is that she learned in her career and finance and the faith that she stood on for her to be able to get to where she got, and the success she achieved is what she wants to share in this book. And then we've got Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg. Everybody also knows this, and I've shared this book before as one of the books that have been influential in my life. The same as the one I just said, which is Missing Gamelos. The same as Barack Obama's. All of them really. I really do like autobiographies, biographies, and memoirs. So you find that all of them most probably have influenced my life somehow. So this is Lean In, and Sheryl Sandberg in this memoir was focusing on women work and the will to lead. So there is a theme to it. Like I said, that's what distinguishes memoirs from biographies and autobiographies. She's not just telling her story of her career and the struggles she met trying to be a woman who is leading. She then examines it and gives it to us with some learnings to say, if you're a woman in a career, what is it that you can do if you get into the situation that I got? And then the last memoir I've got is Vusi Thembekwayo's The Business and Life Lessons from a Black Dragon. This one, I hope that you also have had it before and read it. It's a great book. But again, he chose to share his lessons from being a dragon and give us some business and life lessons from that, as he retells, right from when he was a young boy as well, to when he grew up, and the struggles as black men in South Africa trying to find his space and achieve as much success and he wanted and be a person of influence. So he took again that angle to share with us through his life events. So these are the memoirs that I decided to show you, and just see the themes that they bring along with, so that they're not just someone retelling their life story, but they choose a certain angle so that we can learn from them. So all three genres that we have so far, that I've mentioned so far, which is autobiography, biography, and memoirs, can be written about literally anyone, although mostly they would focus on famous people like celebrities, politicians, business people, entrepreneurs, influential people, and artists. You can literally have an autobiography, a biography, or a memoir from anyone who decides that they want to pen down their life because they feel that we've got something to learn from it. And the trends are changing now. We've got more and more people who decide to share their lives with us and not just celebrities. And of course, in the process, they then become celebrities because we know about them. As you can see, autobiography, biography, and memoir are very similar type of books. The difference is in the aims of the author and the aims of what to impart to the audience, as well as the theme of focus. That is the main difference between these three. And it's interesting once you know them, once you know the nuances between them, you know exactly what book you're picking, right? By just reading its back, you know, the summary at the back of what is inside, you immediately know, you know, when you read. And now going forward, like I said, you should be a bit more conscious in choosing and deciding what is the right book for you at that particular time based on what you're going to learn. So I will sum up their pros and cons together as the benefits of reading all three books, which I've already said are very similar to each other. Their pros and cons are the same as well. So what are the pros of reading these real life accounts? The first one is that they are real life examples. So these are books written by people who have achieved what you want to achieve, and that's why I enjoy them the most. So you look up to them because they will share with you how they got to where they are today. And there is no sugarcoating in most of them. If they were struggling, you read about their struggle. They are willing to share that. If it was easy, if they came from a privileged background, you probably miss a lot of trials and tribulations, but you get to understand how they get to where they are. But I like the fact that a lot of them are authentic. If there were struggles involved, then at least I know and I prepare myself to face those hurdles, and then of course know how to tackle them, probably from learning how they did. And this is what I enjoy the most about autobiographies, biographies, and memoirs. It's just the fact that I know when I'm reading, that inner voice in me is saying, you're reading real life accounts. There is no fiction, so whatever it is you can learn, you can apply if it is contextual in your life. The second one is that they provide inspiration. So because you're reading someone's real life and how they passed through the steps that they used to get to where they are within their context, whether or not it was easy or hard, it is inspiring to read such stories, to then have those role models that you read up on. And then they tell you exactly how they got to that. And that's enough inspiration. I was sharing in a few videos back from here about Dr. Emmanuel Tabans, the boy who never gave up. And you just get encouraged to never give up yourself when you read this immensely touching story, you know, the epic journey that you traveled. Then you look at your story and you say, okay, perhaps my life is not so bad. I can actually keep on going. And that's what I like about these real life accounts. It's inspiration. And then it's realistic advice as well. And when you read some of these books, you really feel like you're talking to a friend. You know, you really feel like they're giving you advice sitting right next to you. I always say that when I am reading, these real life books, I feel like I'm on a one-on-one. I've set up a one-on-one meeting with them, and they're talking to me and giving me that front seat ticket. You know, when you've got an artist who's come to perform, getting a front seat ticket is very expensive. But for a couple of dollars, you can get for yourself a front row seat ticket and speak one-on-one with this person as they tell you their life story. And that's always my analogy. I feel like I'm in a one-on-one meeting, something that I would never get if this celebrity or the influential well-known person were to pitch here and be coming to give a speech, or if they're an artist to perform or to speak. I probably would never get the opportunity to get as close to them as I could get from reading their book. So you know very well that you've got that front row seat ticket to get realistic advice from them. And so as much as they are interesting reads, these real life accounts books, what are the cons of reading these books, or of what you get from these books? The first one is that it's not everything that you read from an autobiography or a biography or a memoir that you can directly apply to your life. It all depends on context, which part of the world they live in, the geopolitical situation, the social situation, their social status versus yours. So you almost have to glean what you can apply to your life. You take those life experiences they've shared and apply what can be applicable to your life. So for example, let's say they quit university a few times, because a lot of the celebrities, especially those that have done well, the billionaires, you know, the ones that would be in the top 100 or top 50 or top 10, have been dropouts from school a lot. And it is contextual to read such biographies and apply some of these things to your lives. Dependent on where you are, education could be heavily emphasized, because probably you are the first person in your generation to go to school. You cannot let your family and your generation down by taking some of this and applying directly to you. But what you can probably learn is the reasons why they probably quit and became a dropout, or what they then chose as their career versus what they had initially chosen. If you looked at the career path you're taking and is it the best for you, but you would still go to college. So that's what I mean by some of the lessons you get from these books are not applicable, dependent on context and where you are. It's also dependent on how much development there is in the country where you are versus where they are. It takes, of course, your discretion to choose what it is that you take from the book and what you leave. The second con that many people may not like, especially if you do not like reading, is that these books, the real life accounts, can be long. So they take time for you to complete, to finish them. And if you're that person that runs out of steam in the middle somewhere, and then your motivation to read fizzles out, then you may not find them very interesting. But however, if you get a book that is captivating and the story is really intriguing, you're probably going to finish it anyway, no matter how long it is. What I would advise, in my experience, to do is that while you read a long autobiography or biography or memoir, that when you find yourself stopping in between, read a self-help book, perhaps in between, because then those tend to be smaller, and that will keep you going, because you feel like, of course, you're achieving something and you've got something to break, you know, that monotony of reading that book for so long. If you feel that it's monotonous and repetitive for you, it seems to work for many people. It's actually given as advice by many readers that they tend to read 2 books at the same time in order to keep going. I tend to focus on one book at a time. You know, I'm just one-dimensional with my reading, and that works for me. The third con about reading these books is that they can be biased and hard to trust. So it depends on whose book you're reading. I mean, you buy a book for a reason. I choose the authors and the books that I read for a reason. It's usually people that I know when I read their story, I'm going to trust it. And even though there could be things in there that I would never know that it's inaccurate information or it's not very factual, but it's people that I know are not controversial enough for me to not trust at all. So it all depends, but a lot of the times, or some of the times, they can be biased. For example, if you're reading a book that has been authored by a politician, they might be biased towards, of course, their political inclination, you know, like where is their political preferences and biases? What are they trying to drive you to because they're a politician? Or if it's a business person, they could just give you a certain perspective because they're trying to give us a certain picture or market themselves in a certain way to us because they've got a business to run. So some of these things, there could be trust issues within the book that you read. So far, for the ones that I've bought, it hasn't been like that. But I cannot discount it that it would ever actually happen with some of the autobiographies, biographies, and memoirs. It can happen. It is also possible that the way a person will narrate their life story depends on the context in which they are living. So, had they been living in a different setting, they could probably tell their story differently. It all depends on the audience they are aiming it for and the environment in which they live. So I have, in my observation, I've seen that a lot of autobiographies, biographies, and memoirs come from progressive countries that are more receptive of freedom of expression and freedom of speech. So therefore, people can give their real life accounts no matter how they want, especially memoirs where they also express a perspective. Whereas people that come from more restrictive countries in terms of religion and societal pressures and being liberal and things like that probably have less of these books coming out of there, because people hold back. They don't know how they're going to be received or what the implications of what they're sharing with the world about their personal life could mean. And that takes us to the next category, which is our famous self-help books. So self-help books are written about solving a particular problem or tackling a particular situation in your life. They are instructional. So they come as a list or steps that you can follow so that you can solve some problems, you can improve your life, or you can move from step 1 to step 2. They are normally written by experts, and I say experts in quote for reasons that I'll say later in the pros and cons of self-help books. But they're normally written by experts that are giving us advice and trying to help us to get from point A to point B. And that's why they're self-help books. It's a book that you can get for yourself, read, and decide that you're going to implement what it is that you've read in the books. You can find lots of different types of self-help books that cover different categories like relationships, career, anxiety, psychology, motivation, many of them. And these days it's an endless list. So the examples I've got for self-help books, which I know a lot of us have seen because there is a proliferation of self-help books out there. The first one is Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert T. Kiyosaki. So this one everybody knows. I've also mentioned this book before in one of my videos. Robert Kiyosaki teaching us how to make money work for us rather than working for money. That's how he puts it here. We've got The Art of War, which really is one of the very well-known books from ancient Asia that advises on strategy. Right from an interpersonal level to organizational level and even to international level. I hope that one day I can review this book and share the review with you. I'm very excited about that. There's also self-help in Napoleon Hill's very famous Think and Grow Rich, which is a book that touches on identifying your goals, mastering the secret of true and lasting success, obtaining whatever you want in life, and joining the ranks of the super successful. Then there's also, I've got here self-help as well from Rachel Hall. It's a very controversial book, I must say. Girl, Stop Apologizing. I was very keen to read this book. I read it. I'm going to share my views about this book. And then a very interesting one that sits on the fence of self-help but as well as spirituality, which is Louise Hay's You Can Heal Your Life. I loved this book. I read it, and it's about finding self-esteem and self-love when you want to just look inside and work on the inside of you so that the outside can show and manifest that which you want. That type of language. That's what this self-help book is about. So self-help books, why I got these varied titles is to just put across the point I said before, that self-help books exist in many different categories and ways. They exist in many niches and sub-niches, and many of them are getting written as we speak right now, and we will have many of them thrown in our face. You literally cannot ever go wrong with so much self-help. So what are the pros and cons of reading self-help books? So I'll start with the pros because that's a good thing to do. Let's start with the positives. So you can immediately apply what you learn from self-help books because they are focused on a certain area, as we've already said. So you can immediately read and apply to your life and go to that very area they're speaking about and take step 1, 2, 3 to get from point A to point B. So that's the good thing about self-help books, in that what you learn from them you can implement immediately. In my experiences though, many of the self-help books are now to take with a bit of a pinch of salt. They are to me just merely for sales. Many of them are just regurgitating the same principles, the same topics, and just rephrasing them, and that has been my experience so far with self-help, which is perhaps why I've got, and I'm enjoying more of the real life accounts of the categories we just looked at. I've become more particular in the type of self-help books that I choose, because I have now seen and realized that the self-help industry is a thriving and lucrative industry. So many people are jumping on that bandwagon and becoming experts. Like I said, self-help books are written by experts. And I put it in quotes. The reason was because not everybody is an expert, but everybody does want their book to be bought. And so they will market it heavily, but it does not mean that it may necessarily bring anything new that you may not have read from previous self-help books. So I've become a bit particular with that. I think when you read more of them, you're literally just going to find that they're repeating themselves. And when a person gives their real life accounts, they cannot be copying anyone else's. And I think that's why real life accounts to me are now more applicable when I read them, in terms of just taking some of the lessons to my life rather than some of the self-help books. A lot of them are still good, but of course, like I've said, you've got to take them with a pinch of salt. Anyway, the fact that there are some of the self-help books out there that we've got to take with a pinch of salt doesn't take away from adding a bit more pros of reading self-help books. So the other good thing to read self-help books is that they're quick and easy. Because they're pointed at a particular subject, they usually are short reads. You can quickly read and start to implement what you've read. And that's the important part. In my experiences, the important part about a self-help book is that it should help you, as it said, and you should be able to implement yourself the steps that you take there. So within a very short time, you can read your book, finish it, and start to see the results of what you have learned from there once you implement it. The other good thing about self-help books is that there are lots of options. So like I said, because there are many of them out there, you will always find, of course, the one that works for you. Because there are lots of authors, lots of areas to look at. Whatever it is that you've got as a problem in your life that you want to fix or improve, you are definitely most probably going to find a self-help book that addresses it. And because of that, there's also lots of information. And it becomes a bit of an information overload, like I was saying, where you have to then now take for yourself, use your discretion and glean out what works for you. The only problem is you can drown in it, picking this book and then that book and then that book. And I think what's good is perhaps look at summaries of some of these books. If you can read some of their summaries or the reviews from people who have bought them before you can actually go and buy a book, that will help a lot. What I can say is that in my experience, a lot of the hyped self-help books are most probably just because it's marketing, just because they've got to make the numbers. I have found that the less hyped books, some of whose authors we don't even know, are actually very good self-help books, but they're not on our social media platforms and not so highly hyped because they're not marketing in that way. So what are the cons of reading self-help books? The first one that I can say for self-help books is that some of them are quick fixes. So they will just give you a very short story or an account of what you can follow, but they don't give you the entire story that you could probably get from a real life account, which gives you context and all those things that help you make an informed decision. So when you implement, you may find that it may not be so easy to take the steps that they give you. And like I said before, some of these books are also contextual. Which part of the world have they been written in, and what facilities are available to implement some of the steps? A lot of them, you probably benefit the first half of the book, and the second half, the author is probably now just rambling and waffling because they probably have to fill up their publishers' pages quarter, and complete the book on time. The ending of a lot of the self-help books is just repetition of what they said before, but rephrasing it because they've got to complete a book of however so many pages they agreed. And so to me, that becomes a bit of a problem with the context that comes with some of the self-help books. So having said all of this, which is better, an autobiography, a biography, a memoir, or a self-help book? You're probably asking yourself that question. So all these books, as you have found now from our conversation so far, is that they're all non-fiction. So if you're looking for real life events to learn from, then you can literally pick all of them. These 4 book genres are not mutually exclusive. However, if you're interested in pointed learning from reading someone else's life and understanding your own life based on a certain theme that they're sharing with you, then like we said, a memoir might just be the best fit for you at that point based on the theme that you're looking for. And finally, if you're looking for solutions and tips and ways to improve a certain part of your life and you want a solution for it, then obviously, as you have seen from all our 4 genres, then a self-help book is the best choice for you at that point in time. It is all a matter of considering your reading preferences and interests. So are you looking for an easy and quick read, or are you looking for something more serious and in-depth? Next, consider how much time you have to read the book. So if you have only a couple of minutes here and there to read a book, then you probably want to avoid the longer autobiographies and biographies. Like we have said, they tend to be long books. And you can therefore go for the shorter self-help books, of course, depending on which area of your life you want to improve. The other thing to look at is how much money you want to spend on a book. You know, the other genres, the real life accounts, do cost money, but self-help books, a lot of them are also now available freely, you know, online all over the place. So very interesting to break these book categories down. I constantly see people struggling to decide and asking on social media which of these book genres they must choose and which of the books under them they must read. It's tough choices every day, as if there isn't enough choices to make in life. But I do hope that the breakdowns that I've given today and my life experiences and my perspectives and opinions on the books, as well as the pros and cons of reading each one of them and the reasons why you could choose each one of them, all of that, I hope that it has given you clarity for that next time that you're going to stand in front of a bookshelf and try and decide which book to pick for yourself. I hope you enjoyed these interesting topics on book genres and how they can be puzzling and confusing. If you would like to enjoy more content and insights on books and the books to read, do subscribe to my channel and also see my most recent videos. Stay tuned to see more of my exciting book tips, book reviews, and book recommendations as they come rolling in each week. Thank you for watching today, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers!